Namaste, and welcome to the Awaken Living podcast with your friendly fungi, Nibodhi. Today, we're diving into a topic that I just absolutely love and that lives right at the crossroads of the ancient and the modern and the mystical and the scientific. Maybe you guessed it. It's fungi, it's mushrooms. And before we dive into it, I really want to give a shout out to the sponsor of the Awaken Living podcast, Real Mushrooms. I only partnered with them because they are offering the most powerful medicinal mushrooms, and they've actually changed my life. I use them on a daily basis, and I trust them because they have more than 50 years of experience and expertise and use 100% organic mushrooms, zero grain, zero fillers, which are in most of the common mushroom products on the market. In their products, you actually feel the difference. So if you want to check out their mushrooms, go to nibodhi.com/mushrooms or visit the link in the podcast notes. With that said, let's go into the mushrooms. Let's go deep into the forest. Let's journey into everything mushrooms. So in Ayurveda, there's actually not that much discussion in mushrooms, and I'm really hoping to change that. That's one thing that I really want to bring into the consciousness of the masses, is how Ayurveda can use mushrooms. But one important thing we need to remember is that Ayurveda did see every single substance as either food, medicine, or poison, and acknowledged that even poisons could be turned into medicine with proper preparation. And another thing is that these ancient enlightened Ayurvedic masters said that as the times change, while the principles of Ayurveda are never going to change because they're the principles of the universe, adaptations will be needed to be made to meet the current times. And so that's what I hope to do, is really take these adaptations and the understanding of what these powerful beings can do in our health and our consciousness and look at that from an Ayurvedic approach. But what Ayurveda did say about these mushrooms is that they should be used with caution. In the classical texts, there's actually not that much information about them. And I think part of that is that there just weren't that many of these mushrooms growing in the different regions of India. So that's one of the reasons why I think there wasn't that much information. But they were mentioned in context to decaying matter or damp environments or substances that were even best avoided by those with weak or sensitive digestive systems, or even those walking a strict spiritual path, because traditionally they were labeled as being a tamasic substance. And I'm going to go into more detail on that later. But tamasic is basically dull or heavy, things connected with more inertia or darkness. And so these yogis who are trying to attain this high state of lightness of being didn't really use these kind of substances. They were also considered to be guru in the digestion. Guru is heavy for digestion purposes, heavy and hard to digest. So they were also not used for that reason. And they were also considered to provoke kapha or even clog the channels, especially if not used properly. So historically, these serious yogis, these wandering ascetics who wanted to attain these higher states of consciousness were considered, these mushrooms weren't considered in their diet. But we have to look at the current time. And in our time, we are seeing this massive renaissance of functional and medicinal mushrooms, and rightfully so. We actually need them. And it's not that they haven't been here for thousands and thousands of years. It's just that modern science is finally confirming what the traditional cultures have been telling us for a very long time, that certain mushrooms are profound medicine for the brain, for the immune system, for our gut, for the gut-brain axis, for our heart, for our mood, and even for spiritual life, which we'll talk about in detail later. But some of these mushrooms, you may have heard of them already. Reishi, lion's mane, turkey tail, cordyceps. Chaga technically isn't a mushroom, but we use it as one. Maitake, chicken of the woods, some oysters, and more. So in today's episode, I want to walk through the living forest of mushroom wisdom together. And my intention is to combine the ancient Ayurvedic wisdom, the ancient Ayurvedic insights, with modern science, and to really understand mushrooms as food, medicine, and as a spiritual teacher. I think the first place we need to look at is understanding what a mushroom really is. And so many people really, I think, when they think of a mushroom, they're thinking it of as the generic foods like portobello mushroom burgers or shiitake and miso soup or a button mushroom on a salad or pizza, something like this. Biologically, mushrooms are not even plants. They belong to an entire different kingdom, the fungi kingdom. And these plants in general use sunshine and chlorophyll to make their own food. Mushrooms don't have any chlorophyll, so they can't do that. So mushrooms live as saprophytes. And what a saprophyte is an organism that feeds on dead and decaying matter. And so imagine a tree that's fallen in the forest. The bark is kind of peeling away, the wood is softening and decaying, and moisture is seeping in, and maybe even some molds are growing. Then the mushroom, the mycelium, the fungi moves in and begins to decompose or break down that wood structure. And then they digest the dead wood. And in doing so, they release nutrients back into soil. So ultimately, what mushrooms are is nature's divine recycling system. They turn death into new life. And there's a couple of key distinctions that really need to be made before we go into the deep medicine. The mushroom that we see above ground, that's the cap and the stem. That's what's called the fruiting body. It's very similar to the fruit on a tree, like an apple on an apple tree. It's the fruit that the apple tree is making. It's the fruiting body. And that the mushrooms are that part. Under the soil and inside the log and within the organic matter lives this organism, a vast network of this white thread-like brain stem kind of stuff, which we call mycelium. So the mushroom is the apple and the mycelium is essentially the tree. And the mycelial networks are intertwining in between the soil and the roots and the fungi. And in some forests, these fungal webs act like this underground internet. They basically are exchanging information. They exchange nutrients, they exchange water, they exchange chemical signals between trees and plants. They actually connect the whole earth. Essentially, mushrooms, these mycelial networks, are the nervous system of the earth, passing messages and distributing the resources that sustain life on the planet. So when we're talking about mushrooms in Ayurveda or modern medicinal aspects, we're really talking about the fruiting body, which is much larger than the hidden intelligence underground. This fruiting body is where the medicine is contained. The intelligence of that is in the wood, in the earth. So likewise, we wouldn't eat the apple tree. We would only eat the apple. So when we're choosing our medicinal functional mushrooms, we should choose products that only have fruiting body. And that's another reason why I use real mushroom products, because everything they make is organic from real fruiting body. So it has the medicine it's supposed to have in there. And again, you have to be very careful because most of what's on the market, it has some fruiting body, but a lot of it is mycelium that's grown on oat and rice substratum, and they just blend it all together, so it doesn't really have a lot of medicine in there. So that's a really important factor to consider when we're looking at the medicinal components. And then looking at it from a deeper lens of Ayurveda, from the Ayurvedic world. In the classical Ayurvedic texts, the herbal dictionaries, the Nigantus, what they're called, mushrooms were referred to as chatraka or chatra, which means umbrella, because of their umbrella-like caps. And they were given other names as well. Puti kashtaka, which means connected with decaying wood or decaying materials. And then kavaka, which refers to the mushroom or the fungi that arises out of dampness or decay. And some of the other Ayurvedic rishis, the Ayurvedic authors, observed mushrooms grew on the earth, and they grew on wood, on trees, they grew on bamboo, they grew out of cow and elephant dung, and just on other waste and decaying materials. So they actually can grow in a lot of different places. And even in the world today, they can grow on walls, they can grow out of cement, they can grow out of just about anything. So that's where I think a lot of the caution in Ayurveda was given, because these substances that are arising from decay and dampness and darkness were treated with some suspicion, because it was considered to be death. But there's death and then there's rebirth from that death, right? So just like the trees in the fall, the leaves have to decay and go to the earth and become this heavy thing. that's what allows the nutrients to regenerate and food to grow in the spring, seeds to come up in the spring. But the classical qualities that Ayurveda gave to them were guru, heavy, Pichula, which is slimy and sticky, Shitala, which is cooling, and then tamasic ahara, which is foods that, when overused or used in the wrong context, create heaviness or dullness of the mind. And as we'll see with the medicinal mushrooms, they kind of do the opposite of that. So Ayurveda does give note that some mushrooms can be nourishing and calming, and they can, in fact, support strength and our vigor and the ojas, our reproductive health, our sexual vitality, and give stamina or grounding. But some varieties also give digestive problems and even can give fever and can, in really severe situations, cause death. And Ayurveda texts did really try to attempt to distinguish the safer mushrooms from more dangerous ones. And so from the text, what Ayurveda traditionally declared as safe mushrooms were ones that were smaller in size and were maybe whitish or pinkish in color. They didn't have any foul smell, and they were actually growing in more clean areas. And this is an interesting thing. When you cut them, they didn't change color. And then the poisonous ones, or more risky ones, were the ones that were considered very bright colored, although nowadays, as we'll talk about it later, some of the bright colored ones do have incredible medicinal value, especially one called chicken of the woods, not to be confused with jack-o'-lantern. They're both bright orange. Jack-o'-lantern can kill you, while chicken of the woods is one of the most dense nutritive substances in the forest. But anyway, the poisonous or risky mushrooms were the ones that were traditionally considered bright colored if they had a strong or foul odor, that were bitter in taste, although there's a lot of bitters that are really good for us. And they grew in kind of like really dirty or stagnant places, very dense, dark, wet places. And they would change color. They would turn blue or black or something gray when they were cut open. So this is the tradition of what they said was safe and not safe. But today's definitions kind of need to be updated because there's so much more we know about them now. But for right now, the key Ayurvedic message for mushrooms is that they're very powerful. Some are medicine, some are poison, and they're not suitable for everyone in every situation, and they need to be chosen wisely, just like anything. Any food, any herb, any substance needs to be used wisely and with understanding of how it's used and where it's coming from. And I think now is a good time to look at mushrooms from other traditions as well, from around the world, because every tradition on the planet used mushrooms. They all had deep relationships with them. They had medicinal relationships with them. They had spiritual relationships with them. Like take reishi, for example, lingzhi. It's known as the mushroom of immortality in Chinese medicine. And this did grow in India. There is reishi in India that grows. But it's considered a Shen tonic in Chinese medicine. And that's something that strengthens our spirit. It supports our longevity and it calms the heart and mind. And in Ayurveda, that can be compared to the prana and our ojas, our vitality. And the heart and the mind is this sattvic communication of divinity within us. So it was known as the mushroom of immortality. And it wasn't so much used as a medicine for acute conditions. It was considered to be used as a medicine for our whole life. We took it on a daily basis. We would drink the reishi tea on a daily basis to protect against decay, to protect against aging-related diseases. In Tibetan medicine, there's one of my favorite mushrooms of all. It's Cordyceps, and it's used in its capacity to enhance stamina, to strengthen our lungs, our prana, and to really rebuild our vitality, especially in high altitude scenarios or in chronic weakness. And my first experience with Cordyceps was hiking in the mountains of Nepal. And it was really fascinating because the porters who were carrying our bags, they were literally half my size, and they were wearing these paper-thin sandals, and I've got heavy hiking boots, and I'm struggling to carry myself up at altitude. And when we get to camp, they put down the packs, they set up the camp, they make dinner, everything. And this goes on for 3 days. All of us in the group were tired, exhausted, and these guys seem to have never-ending energy. So finally, after day 3, I asked them, what are you doing? How do you have so much energy? And they gave me some of the Cordyceps mushrooms, and I took it, and I'm just like, I want this every day of our trip. And I started taking it every day, and I had so much energy and so much vitality, and I could breathe so deep at high altitude, not exhausted at all. So that was my first experience with cordyceps. It's one of my favorites. I take it almost every day. And then another really potent mushroom that's in the Siberian traditions, the Siberian shamanism and medicinal traditions, it's chaga. It's often called the gift of the god or black gold, and it grows on birch trees. And it has immense immune strengthening power. It supports the liver. There's a lot of clinical research showing that it has these major anti-inflammatory effects and so many other things. So these are some of the major traditions that use these kind of mushrooms. And also just the indigenous people of North America, Mesoamerica, use mushrooms for medicine. They used it ceremonially for vision, for guidance, for spiritual healing, to connect with mystical realms, to get vision for the tribe, for all these beautiful ways of seeing it. So these are different traditions from around the world. And the classical Ayurveda view, again, it sees these mushrooms from decay and dampness. And some of the other lineages saw them as portals into the vitality and spirit and deep spiritual healing and physical healing. So studying functional mushrooms in the modern day is such a beautiful thing, because they're proving how valuable they are. And we can then reinterpret mushrooms as from an evolved Ayurvedic lens. We can see it moving from tamasic foods to avoid to a rasayana, a rejuvenative, an immune modulator, and even something that strengthens our prana, our spirit, and when we use it for the right purposes, for consciousness. And when we get into the individual mushrooms, I will break them down in an Ayurvedic model so we can see how these medicinal mushrooms work on an individual level. But first, safety. We have to understand the difference between edible mushrooms and poisonous mushrooms. And that's really, really important. But when we have these edible and medicinal mushrooms, there's magic. But we have to be careful, because both, in modern mycology and the wisdom traditions, we did see them as potentially deadly. And one of the main groups of mushrooms that has, potential life-threatening properties to it is the Amanita family. In the Amanitas, there's three main Amanitas that are really, we have to be careful of. One is called Amanita phalloides, and that's the death cap. And it looks like a very common pale mushroom, but it's actually lethal. And then there's another one, Amanita verosa, and it has relatives as well, but that's called the angel of death. And it appears very similar to another white edible mushroom. A lot of Japanese harvest this white mushroom in the forest, and if they get the angel of death, it's highly toxic. And another one is Amanita muscaria, which is called fly agaric. And this is the classical red mushroom with little white spots on it. And it is very potentially dangerous, and it also has hallucinogenic properties. And so I want to say this very clearly. I love foraging in the forest. I know my mushrooms. If you do go foraging in the forest for mushrooms, get educated, get very well educated, find a professional to teach you. Don't go forage in the mushrooms unless you truly know what you're doing or are guided by an expert. Okay, it's really important, because there are some similarities between mushrooms and between the medicinal ones and the poisonous ones. So you just have to be careful. And some there's no similarities, and they're very safe. Like lion's mane mushroom, it grows on hardwood trees, and there's nothing like it. If you find this in the forest, every time I find this, my heart, it's like having darshan with God. God has just blessed me. So lion's mane there's nothing looks like it in the forest, so it's very easy. But again, with chicken of the woods, a very potent medicine, the lookalike is this jack-o'-lantern. And if you know the mushrooms, jack-o'-lantern have gills where chicken of the woods have pores. And so it's not that hard to confuse them, but you should be educated. So just take caution. And for our purposes, there's also a lot of culinary mushrooms in the forest as well. And so if you don't know what they look like, just go to the store and buy them. There's lots of organic, reputable sources in the health food stores these days. So just be cautious, okay? Now, modern science and ancient science has categorized more than 1.5 million different species of fungi on the earth. And basically 14,000 known specific mushroom species. And of those 1.5 million fungi and 14,000 mushrooms, about 3,000 of them are edible. So not a huge amount, although 3,000 is a lot. But within all of that, only a fraction are highly medicinal. And so some of these highly medicinal mushrooms are very prized and are expensive because they're not so easy to grow, and they're definitely not so easy to find. Cordyceps grows up in the high Himalayas. Luckily, now we know how to grow it, but a lot of if we're finding wild cordyceps in nature, it's going, I think, the average price in 2024, 2025 is around $25,000 a kilo, if you can get that much. So it's good that we can grow these things. When we think of mushrooms, I would think of it in a few different categories. Basically 4 categories of mushrooms for our purposes. There's the edible and culinary mushrooms, which are the portobellas and crimini mushrooms, oysters, morel, chanterelle, shiitake. And the oysters and shiitake do have medicinal value as well. But the real medicinal mushrooms is the reishi, the chaga, the lion mane, the turkey tail, cordyceps, maitake, chicken of the woods, and shiitake mushrooms in concentrated extracts do have a lot of medicine, as do golden oysters. Okay. And then there's these non-edible woody mushrooms. They're tough, they're bitter, they're not really used for food at all. Sometimes in teas or tinctures, decoctions, but not as often. And then the poisonous mushrooms, which should really never be used. So I want to talk first about the culinary mushrooms, and then we'll go deep into the functional medicinal mushrooms from an Ayurvedic perspective. So the reason I'm doing this, I don't eat culinary mushrooms really. I just don't resonate with them. I resonate with medicinal mushrooms, but so many people do. And so that's why I'm just discussing it here, just so there's an understanding. So the 3 most common edible mushrooms are button mushrooms, crimini, and portobello. And it's actually the same mushroom. It's Agaricus bisporus. And they're literally the exact same mushroom, just at different ages. The button mushrooms are the young ones. Crimini are a little bit more mature, and the portobellos are the fully grown mushrooms. And the taste and flavor and amount of vitamins and minerals in them pretty much ranges based on their age. And so they can be used in stir fries, as burgers and stews, however you would cook mushrooms. Other edible mushrooms, really popular edible mushrooms, shiitake. And that's been used in so many cultures for thousands and thousands of years. And it has a lot of vitamins, minerals, B vitamins, but it also has a lot of medicine in it that's really good for the liver, for digestion, for metabolism, for the immune system, and for the heart. So shiitakes are considered a very, very valuable mushroom, both as an edible mushroom and a medicinal mushroom. Some of the other more edible mushrooms, like morels, they're like a honeycomb texture, and they're considered more of a gourmet mushroom with a rich kind of earthy flavor. Chanterelles, those grow all over the forest. So if you know what a chanterelle looks like, that's a pretty safe mushroom to harvest. Just you need to make sure you know what you're doing. But there's golden chanterelles. They're like more trumpet-shaped kind of mushrooms, little fruity flavor to them. And then the oyster mushrooms. And there's white oyster and golden oyster mushrooms. And if you can find golden oysters, you've hit the jackpot. Now, both of them are really good. Both of them do have some medicine in there, but the golden oysters have a substance called ergothioneine in it. And this is a substance that can cross the blood-brain barrier, similar to the way lion's mane does. And that ergothioneine helps against neurodegenerative diseases. It protects against that. The white oysters have some too, but just not as much. And so with these edible mushrooms, looking at from just a nutritional perspective, one of the things that makes them highly valued is that they're very low in calories and very low in fat, and they're quite filling. And they do have a lot of B vitamins. They have a lot of minerals like potassium and copper and selenium, and they're actually a pretty good source of dietary fiber. And depending on where they're collected in the time of the year, they do have some vitamin D in there as well. So those are really good things to just get general nutrition. And that's wonderful. And they're tasty. So if you like them, great. That's fine, no problem. The big picture of medicinal mushrooms and the health benefits. Again, it's an exploding industry. And again, a lot of what's on the market has very little value. So I want to really talk about the main mushrooms and how to look at them from an Ayurvedic perspective and what they can really do for us. Because a lot of these mushrooms, in the medicinal mushrooms, they have substances like beta glucans and polysaccharides and terpenes that are the intelligence of our immune system. They're the intelligence of our gut-brain axis and really have powerful immune boosting and immunomodulating effects, especially things like reishi and turkey tail and maitake and shiitake. These are loaded with high levels of beta glucans, so our immune cells respond way more intelligently. Chaga and reishi are powerful antioxidants. Actually, my understanding is that chaga is the most powerful antioxidant on the planet. And what an antioxidant does, if you don't know, is it neutralizes free radicals and reduces oxidative stress, which is what's responsible for cells to age. So these also have anti-aging effects, or pro-aging, I call it, pro-aging, aging healthy and consciously. Many of the mushrooms, these medicinal mushrooms, have prebiotic fibers in them, and they feed our good bacteria. Like lion's mane and turkey tail are just absolutely amazing for supporting the microbiome and the tight junctions of our gut and the gut lining and the gut immune function. And our nervous system, most of our immune cells and nervous system cells and endocrine cells are in the microbiome, which is very, very thin. It's about as thin as one of the hairs on our head split in half, where we have hundreds of millions of bacteria and cells living that all inform the immune system and nervous system. So when we take lion's mane as food or as a medicinal substance, turkey tail as a tea or as a medicinal substance, we're regenerating that gut intelligence. We're regenerating the immune system and nervous system. And again, chronic inflammation is on the rise. In this world, there's so much inflammation. So many people call me with inflammatory issues. Reishi and Cordyceps have major terpene compounds in there that calm that chronic inflammation. Likewise, all of these mushrooms so far are heart supportive. They help to improve liver function. They help to improve cholesterol level, especially the bitters like reishi and cordyceps, and overall just support our cardiovascular health. The lion's mane and the golden oysters, powerful brain protective and help our cognitive enhancement. Lion's mane stimulates nerve growth factor. It supports memory, focus, nervous system. So that's something as we age that all of us could use. And, we can't say that anything cures cancer, but there's a lot of research. So we'll say that they have anti-cancer potential. There's clinical research showing that they have anti-cancer potential. And that's turkey tail, that's chaga, that's reishi, that's maitake, even shiitake. They're being studied now in the universities because they inhibit tumor growth and they support immune system resilience and enhance response to certain cancer therapies in a supportive way, not as a replacement, but they can be used as adjunct therapies. So from the Ayurvedic lens, what a lot of these effects translate to is building of our ojas. That's the vital essence. That's our longevity, that ojas, that cellular intelligence and vitality and immunity. So that's one of the most important things we want to do in Ayurveda is build our ojas. And likewise, they can support the Agni, the digestive fire, and act as a rasayana, rejuvenative. And so with the three doshas, really a lot of these mushrooms are excellent for vata and pitta. They calm the excess vata and pitta when used intelligently, used properly. And they can help with kapha conditions as well, like excess of mucus or sluggish metabolism or congestion through certain ways of preparing them, doing with teas, doing in different combinations. So all the doshas can actually be really supported through the mushrooms done well. So let's go mushroom by mushroom. I think this is a great time to do that. And look at the most powerful functional allies we have. I want to start with lion's mane. That's literally my absolute favorite mushroom on the planet. My heart and brain light up when I find this in the forest. So lion's mane is food for the brain and nerves. It looks like this white waterfall or a lion's mane, these long, shaggy, spiny things. It's not like a mushroom cap. It's just absolutely beautiful. If you don't know what it looks like, go on the internet and look at images of lion's mane. It is phenomenal. And a lot of the modern research lion's mane has nerve growth factor, brain-derived nerve growth factor. It helps to regenerate brain cells. The science says it may, we have to put that may in quotations, it may improve memory or focus or cognitive function. And it has the potential to support that nerve repair and helping that gut-brain axis. And 93% of our neurohormones, neurotransmitters, neuropeptides are produced in the gut. So when the gut is helped, the brain is helped. It supports that vagus nerve coherence. Again, this gut-brain axis, Agni and Prana, so vital. And traditionally, lion's mane was used for brain fog, for cognitive impairment, and for recovery of the nervous system. From the Ayurvedic perspective, we're going to go through the Ayurvedic classifications, the actions of Ayurveda. It's a medya. It's a medya rasayana. It's a nervine tonic. It supports intelligence, memory, and rejuvenation. It's also a Maja Dhatu rasayana. It nourishes the nervous system, the nervous system and the immune system. And it's Vajikarana. It supports the reproductive tissue via the ojas, that cellular vitality. So I know it's a little scientific, but it's necessary. I find it necessary so we can understand these things. I just want to provide as much education as possible so we can make proper decisions about what we want to use in our life and how to use it. So for the doshas, lion's mane really balances vata and pitta, especially vata with high anxiety, nervousness, or overthinking, and pitta with high anger issues or with a temper. It calms the mind, it calms the heart. And yes, it may increase kapha because it is a little bit heavy and it's a little bit mucilaginous, but you can counteract that with cooking it with ginger and black pepper and different spices. It's very easy to counteract these more kaphic tendencies by just adding spices or cooking it with some ghee or something like this. The taste, the rasa of the lion's mane, it's madura, it's sweet. And so sweet does increase the kapha taste. It does have a slightly bitter taste depending on the age of it, which is excellent for pitta as well. But mostly it's got a sweet taste and it's cooling. The virya, the potency of it, it's cooling. And the post-digestive effect is also sweet, which is why it's so good for building and nourishing the tissues. The sweet taste, that's the earth and water element. It nourishes the tissues. It brings that comforting feeling to our body. That's why so many people love the sweet taste, because it's comforting. And the prabhav, the unique effect of the lion's mane is that it's nerve regenerating. It's cognitive enhancing. And basically, lion's mane is this excellent medya rasayana, this excellent rejuvenation for the mind, for anxiety, for nervous system exhaustion. And so just with a kapha type, just add some warming spices to it. And so as we go through the other mushrooms, I just want to remind everyone that from the Ayurvedic model, we look at rasa, virya, vipak, prabhav, and the guna. The rasa is the taste. The virya is the potency. Is it heating? Is it cooling? Vipak is the post-digestive effect it has on the body. And prabhav, not every plant has a prabhav, but a lot of them do. And that's the unique special effect that plant gives us. Okay. So with that, let's move on to my next favorite, cordyceps. They're actually all my favorite. It's hard to say what's my favorite, but lion's mane truly is my favorite. Cordyceps, absolutely amazing. There's two predominant types of cordyceps. There's Cordyceps sinensis and Cordyceps militaris. It's the Cordyceps they're both highly medicinal, but the militaris has a much higher medicinal effect on our body. And Cordyceps is basically our endurance and lung ally. And traditionally, how it's grown, it's found on caterpillars. It's also known as caterpillar fungus. It was traditionally found on the caterpillar larvae in the wild at high altitudes. Now it's cultivated. Again, I was saying it's like $20,000, $25,000 a kilo to get it in nature from that caterpillar larvae. And I'm glad not to eat the caterpillar, so I'm happy to just get the traditionally grown ones, the organically grown ones. But cordyceps is super, super famous for its energy enhancing qualities because it actually helps the body to produce more nitric oxide, which prevents fatigue in the brain, in the blood, in the muscles. So the modern use for cordyceps, the modern research on cordyceps is suggesting that it increases our energy and stamina. It supports lung function. It helps with oxygen utilization. It really helps to counter chronic fatigue, low vitality, and especially after an illness. It helps to rejuvenate after a illness. And a lot of athletes are using cordyceps to enhance performance. And actually, if I remember correctly, there was a story about when China won a lot of gold medals and they thought they were doping and they kept testing them and doing research. They found out they were actually using cordyceps. And cordyceps can also be used as an adaptogen, which is really important in the modern world because adaptogens helped us adapt, and especially to respond to stress, to high levels of stress hormones, histamine, cortisol, especially adrenaline. So the gunas, the actions of cordyceps from an Ayurvedic model is that it's balya, which means strengthening. It builds that vitality. And it's also a rasayana, rejuvenative. It's also a vajikarana, which supports our sexual and reproductive vitality. And it strengthens the pranavaha shrota. That's the respiratory channel. That's the channel that carries prana to every cell in the body. 72,000 channels of prana we have. And so the cordyceps really affects us in a good way. And so the effects it has on dosha is that it's actually super balancing for vata and kaphas. And it could increase pitta if it's overused. If someone's already overheated, then maybe cordyceps isn't the right one, or use cordyceps in conjunction with lion's mane. On its own, if pitta is already overheated, it should be used carefully. The taste of it, the rasa, it's got 3 different tastes. It's madura, which is sweet. It's kashaya, which is astringent, and it's tikta, which is bitter. So bitter is good for pitta, but the astringent sweet is good for pitta as well. It's the astringent that's not as good for the pitta. But the sweet taste is fantastic for the vata. The astringent and bitter is great for pitta and kapha. So overall, I would classify it more tridoshically, but just pitta would be a little cautious if you're already too hot. Because the virya, the potency of it, it is a warming substance because it traditionally grows in high mountains, in the cold high mountains, to keep us warm, to keep the circulation going. So that virya is warming, it's heating, and the vipak, the post-digestive effect, is madura, which is that sweet taste. It's the building, it's the restorative. So it's just absolutely phenomenal. And the prabhav is that it's ojas building. It builds our stamina, it builds our physical vitality, it builds our sexual vitality. I've even seen in a lot of the modern sexual wellness formulas using cordyceps in there. They're usually using Cordyceps sinensis because it's much cheaper to produce, where militaris is much more expensive to produce, but militaris does have more medicine. And the qualities, it's light, it's penetrating, it's unctuous. In Ayurveda, that's lagu, tikshna, and snigdha. So the Ayurvedic viewpoint of cordyceps, it's warming, it's invigorating, it helps to regenerate depleted vata, it helps to energize the sluggish kapha, it restores our prana, our vitality, and pitta just needs to be aware of the dosage and make sure you don't overheat. Use it with something that's cooling it to neutralize it so you get all the medicinal benefits. Like I said, I take cordyceps every day. I take it in combination with other bitter herbs, which are cooling. I take it in combination with lion's mane, with the Ayurvedic herb Brahmi. It's wonderful like this. Okay. Moving on to another very, very powerful herb is Reishi, Ganoderma lucidium. And there's a lot of species of Ganoderma all over the United States, all over Europe. I love finding Ganoderma. They're beautiful plants. They're beautiful fungi. The main medicine is Ganoderma lucidium. That's the mushroom of immortality, and it calms the spirit. It's called Lingji, the mushroom of immortality. And it's also a Shen tonic, which means it strengthens the spirit and it prolongs life. And I said earlier, Reishi wasn't used to treat conditions. It was used in daily life, just like having a cup of tea in the morning. It would be mixed with green tea or with matcha, or you can put it in your chai. I like putting it in my cacao drink in the morning. I put it with pu'er. You can put it with anything, really. It goes great with just about anything. And the modern science and research on Reishi has shown that it modulates the immune system. Absolutely phenomenal. I mean, this is what we've known. This is what Ayurveda and Tibetan medicine and Chinese medicine have told us. And it's also a powerful adaptogen. And as an adaptogen, just like the Ayurvedic herb ashwagandha. It can be used in the daytime for energy, but it can be used at nighttime for a great night's sleep. So reishi can be used at nighttime to really promote that beautiful deep rest, that incredible sleep quality. And it also supports heart health. It builds that overall resilience. So the Ayurvedic actions is that it's sattva. It's sattva dharaka, which means that it enhances the sattvic quality, the mental quality, the spiritual composure of a person. I said that wrong. Sattva vardhaka. It's good to say Sanskrit correctly. Sattva vardhaka. Rasayana, rejuvenative quality. Hridaya, it's a heart tonic. Nidrayanana, it promotes sleep. And Medya, it's a nervine tonic. It supports the mind, it supports the nerves. And truly, it works on all three doshas. It's completely balanced for the three doshas, so anyone can take it. The tastes are tikta and kashaya, which is bitter and astringent. So that's going to have some effect on all the doshas. The the potency of it, virya, is cooling, sita, and the post-digestive effect is katu, which is the pungent taste. And the prabhav, again, it's that deep calming of the mind and the spirit. It's uplifting for the shen, the ojas, and it promotes that sattvic quality. So it's light, it's lagu, it's light, but it's also stira, it's stabilizing. So it provides this beautiful energy. And if you've ever had reishi, you know what I'm talking about. And if you never had reishi, get some reishi today. Get some reishi, make some reishi tea, get real mushrooms reishi. It's fantastic. It's absolutely amazing. I love it. And again, reishi is a profoundly sattvic mushroom when it's in a tea form, when it's in an extract form, and it just works on the prana in ways, prana, tejas, and ojas. Tejas is that cellular intelligence, that cellular vitality. Reishi works on all of it. The next in the medicinal mushrooms is chaga, and it's not a typical mushroom. It's actually like it's actually like a parasite of the birch tree. But don't think of it as a parasite that's going to give you digestive parasites. It's going to destroy oxidative stress in your body. It is the antioxidant powerhouse. And so it grows traditionally in cold climates. It grows all over the Scandinavian countries. It grows in Vermont, in Maine, in Canada, anywhere there's birch trees. And basically it looks like a burnt lump of charcoal more than a mushroom. If you don't know what that looks like, go on the internet and look at what chaga looks like growing on a tree. It's fascinating. And they can be huge. They look so bizarre. But once you see one in nature, you'll never forget it either. The modern use and the modern research is showing us that it's really the highest form of antioxidants we can find, and it's supporting the immune system. And this is a really great study that has been done. They're using it to regulate blood sugar. So it could potentially be used in treating some kind of diabetes in the future if those tests prove conclusive. Also, it's supporting the liver health, both strengthening the liver and in detoxification. And as it's a powerful antioxidant, it's used in skin health and just overall vitality. The most traditional ways is to make it into a tea. And if you're making a tea, it has a very strong cell wall that needs to be broken down. So if you're getting fresh chaga, you got to boil it for a long time. You got to boil it for an hour or two. Put in a big pot, a lot of water, boil it. Medicinally, it's actually being duly extracted with hot water and alcohol extraction to get all the medicine out. And that's where we can get some profound healing in these dual extracted chaga, especially the ones made by real mushrooms. I love both forms. I love taking it in the dual extracted powdered form. I love getting it as a dried chunk and boiling it up. Both are beautiful ways to take it. I recommend having both on hand just for diversity. The Ayurvedic view on chaga, the actions, the gunas that it has, it's a rasayana, it's a rejuvenative. It's rakta shodhaka, which means it purifies the blood, and it's agni deepan. It very gently, but powerfully stimulates your digestive fire. It stimulates that agni and helps you to digest food. It helps create more gut coherence. It's ojo vardhaka, which means it's building the ojas. And as an adaptogen, it's enhancing our immune system. It's got antioxidants. It's anti-inflammatory. All these beautiful things we would want in a single substance, right? And so for the dosha effects, it mostly balances vata and kapha. It's a very warming. It's the potency, the virya. It's very warming because it grows in these cold climates. So it's designed to keep us warm. So in high doses, it can increase pitta. But again, you just add something to it that's more neutralizing the pitta if you're a pitta, because there's so much medicine there that we want to have it. The taste, it varies. It depends on how old the chaga is and which, altitude and latitude and longitude it was found at. But it can be tikta, which is bitter. It can be kashaya, astringent. And it can be slightly sweet. There's a sweet undertone to it. So it can be all three of these, hence balancing all three doshas. And like I said, it's warming. The potency is warming. And the post-digestive effect is also warming. It's katu, it's pungent. So that creates a warm post-digestive effect. Again, that's great for digestion. If you have slow, sluggish, sticky, slimy, kapha digestion, this is fantastic. Add even a little more ginger to it, add some black pepper, and you're ready to go. And the prabhav. The prabhav is that it's the most powerful antioxidant and one of the most powerful immunomodulators we have. So again, chaga is this deep, powerful, earthly kind of shield for our immune system. It strengthens our immune system. It balances that sluggish agni. If we have low ojas, it builds that up. And, it's better to use it, I would say, in the cooler months of the year. Maybe not so much in the summer, unless you're just doing like a room temperature beverage. You can make the chaga tea and then drink it at room temperature if you need that summer support. Moving on from chaga, another one, which I love finding in nature, it is just so beautiful. It's called turkey tail, Trametes versicolor. When you see this in nature, it's also this colorful color fest of mushrooms. And there is a lookalike, which is called false turkey tail, and that's not dangerous, but it's actually super simple to determine them. The false turkey tail has gills, where the Trametes versicolor, the true turkey tail, is pores. It's a polypore. It has pores underneath. So it's very easy to tell the difference. But again, if you find false turkey tail, there's no danger in that. There's no poisonous properties to it. Turkey tail is an immune and microbiome ally. And it grows in these layers, like fan-like layers, like a turkey tail, like a little forest mandala. It's beautiful. Again, if you don't know what it looks like, look at images on the internet. And turkey tail is super high in these polysaccharides, polysaccharide P and K. And in certain countries, like Japan, these are used in integrative cancer care. They're using, in Japan, turkey tail for breast cancer and prostate cancer and colorectal cancer and different cancers in a very integrative way. We're not saying that in the United States. We're not allowed to, but in places like Japan, they are doing that. And what it does is it modulates and strengthens our immune system. And one of the main ways that I use it is as a prebiotic fiber. It feeds all the beneficial gut bacteria. So if you have unhealthy gut bacteria, if you have Candida albicans or E. coli or some unhealthy bacterial overgrowth, turkey tail, instead of going full gung-ho and trying to kill the Candida, the bacteria, if you take turkey tail, it feeds the good bacteria, and those unhealthy bacteria just don't have an environment to keep living in. There's nothing to feed them anymore. So turkey tail can be used as a prebiotic fiber, as a probiotic, and just support general immune resilience. The Ayurvedic actions of it is that it's lekana. It scrapes toxins in excess of accumulations out of the body. And it's krimagni. It's antimicrobial. It's antiparasitic. It also, like the others, it's a rasayana. It's rejuvenative. And it's also rasa rasayana. It rejuvenates the lymph and the blood, the lymphatic system, the plasma. And again, like I said, for the microbiome, it's one of the greatest things we can do for the microbiome, for the immune system. In other countries other than America, it's used in anti-cancer protocols. So these are the main actions that Ayurveda has identified, as well as modern medicine. And for the doshas, for the most part, because it's a dry, it's a fan-like thing, and birds are vata anyway. So it's kind of got that association. It can increase vata if used in very high doses or not used with proper grounding substances, but it's excellent for kapha and pitta. But again, vata shouldn't stay away from it. Just add something that's going to help balance it. The taste, the rasa of turkey tail, is both bitter and astringent, and it does have that sita, that cooling property to it. That varia, the varia of it is a little bit more cooling than warming. I would even say it's a little more neutral than cooling, but it's classified as cooling. And then the post-digestive effect is pungent. So that's going to have a good post-digestive Agni effect. It's going to help to digest the food and deliver those nutrients. The prabhav, that special property, it's deep immune rejuvenation and profound for balancing the gut microbiome. I'd rather have turkey tail any day over any probiotic on the market. And I'm not dissing probiotics. They're wonderful in certain scenarios, but the turkey tail colonizes all the good bacteria, not just a few. And so turkey tail, just overall, it's an excellent ally for our immune system and our digestive system. It removes stagnation. It removes weakness in the immune system. It helps with gut dysbiosis. And you can combine it with just about any other grounding, nourishing herb or food if you're a Vata type. Chicken of the woods. Chicken of the woods is not, I don't see it used that much in medicine as a supplement, but it's a medicinal food. And I'm in love with this mushroom as well. In 2020, during the pandemic, the fall months, I was in the mountains of Charlottesville, and there was chicken of the woods growing everywhere. We harvested hundreds of pounds of it. If you go back on my Instagram and Facebook pages some years back, you can see our harvests. But basically, chicken of the woods provides sustenance and strength. It's a bright yellowish orange mushroom, and it grows on hardwood trees. Again, you do need to be a little careful because it does look similar to jack-o'-lantern. If you know the difference, it doesn't actually look that way, other than that they're both orange. But just to be careful, chicken of the woods is porous. It's a polypore. It has a smooth underbelly. It doesn't have any gills. The jack-o'-lantern and some of these other ones, they have gills. But the action, the modern use of it is nourishing, it's grounding. It's a substantial source of nutrition in a food. And it's really supportive when there's depletion. And if you are a vegetarian, it's an amazing meat substitute. And it does stimulate our digestion really well when it's given with when it's cooked in the proper way with the proper digestive spices. So if we look at it from an Ayurvedic model, although chicken of the woods didn't grow in India, we're just applying the Ayurvedic principles to it. It's nourishing and promoting growth. It's balya. It's giving that strength. It's Agni Deepan. It stimulates the digestive fire. It can clear obstructions in the channels. And the dosha benefits, it's actually pretty tridoshic. It especially balancing for Vata and Kapha when it's well spiced. And it could increase pitta. It's very rich. It's very stimulating. It's orange after all. But just, if you cook it with some ghee, some coconut oil, cumin, coriander, fennel, just balance it out properly. Cook it with some green vegetables, have it with some rice. Delicious. I was making pizzas with it in the winter when we were harvesting it. That was really fantastic. Lion's mane and chicken of the woods pizza, just absolutely incredible. The taste of it, it's actually interesting because depending on the age and the size, it has a varying taste. It's madura, it's sweet, but it also has a little bit of a salty taste, a lavana taste, and a little bit pungent as well. But it is warming, and the post-digestive taste is sweet, and its special property is that it provides strength and just physical nourishment. It has so much vitamins, so much minerals, so much nutrition. So chicken of the woods, it's a mushroom of substance. It's super densely nourishing to the body. It's grounding. And it's best cooked with oils and spices. Give it some ginger, give it some black pepper, give it the Ayurvedic formula Trikatu. Any digestive spices make it more bioavailable. Now, another forest mushroom that I love in this relative to chicken of the woods is hen of the woods. That's called maitake. Grifola frondosa. Maitake is called hen of the woods, and it is powerful immune booster. It's great for the metabolic system, amazing for the cardiovascular system. It works on all of it. And this can be found easily in the mushrooms in the forest with these other polypore mushrooms. It's actually very easy to identify if you know what it looks like, and it's got pores underneath. And there's nothing that really looks like it in the forest that's poisonous. So it's a safe one to, if you can just identify it, it's pretty safe to harvest. but it has a sweet taste, it has a bitter taste, it has an astringent taste. So it's really good for all three doshas. It is warming. It grows more in the fall and in the winter months, so it has that warming effect on us. And the post-digestive is sweet, so it's building, it's nourishing. And basically, it's going to be balancing to all three doshas if it's cooked with oil and enough herbs properly. Maitake works on the dhatus, the bodily tissues, in unique ways. It works on the lymph, blood, fat, and reproductive tissue. So ultimately, it is hitting all 7 tissues, but it has an affinity for the lymph, for building blood, strengthening blood, purifying blood, burning fat for fuel, strengthening our metabolism, burning metabolic waste that gets stored in brown fat, and regenerating the reproductive system. And basically, maitake is also known Ayurvedic actions. It's rasayana. It promotes rejuvenation, longevity. It scrapes toxins out of the fat tissue. It scrapes toxins out of the lymph and the blood. It strengthens our immune system, vitality, and really builds ojas. It builds that deep immunity. And it's heart supporting. It's a cardiotonic. So another fantastic mushroom. You can get that as food and medicine. Likewise, real mushrooms produces a high-quality fruiting body maitake powder and supplement. Just amazing. Metabolically, immunologically, for immune deficiencies, great to take in the winter, great after an illness to deal with fatigue, to deal with recovery. So that essentially covers the main medicinal mushrooms that I want to go over today. There's others, but those are the main ones. Now, there's another mushroom that's getting a lot of attention in the modern world and in healing, and I'm going to talk about that. I'm not necessarily promoting the use of it, but I feel it has a very valuable place and should be discussed. And that's with what people call magic mushrooms, mushrooms that have a substance called psilocybin. And there is a lot of modern clinical research in controlled legal settings that are showing that these mushrooms, used well, are helping treatment-resistant depression. They're helping to reduce anxiety and trauma responses, and they're supporting people with PTSD, with CPTSD, with addiction and end-of-life distress. There's a lot of clinical tests being done with veterans who have come back from war, who have severe, chronic, complex PTSD, and the results are showing up very profound. These are not everyday foods. It's not for the common person. I'm not telling you to go out and start taking them. They're psychoactive. They can be very destabilizing. And for the most part, they're not legal. They're illegal. Where they are being used is typically in guided therapeutic context with trained professionals in carefully controlled setting for a therapeutic perspective. And I do want to go over the Ayurvedic perspective of it because it is coming to the forefront of everyone's attention, and I feel that it needs to be addressed so people have an understanding of what it is. And if you do choose to use it, that's your business, but you have an understanding of what's happening here because today's talk is everything fungi. So from an Ayurvedic perspective, even from a spiritual perspective, psilocybin mushrooms have been traditionally used in just about every culture to open the doors of perception. Even in ancient Vedic culture, there was something called soma. And soma is considered this sacred psycho-spiritual elixir that expands consciousness. And we don't know exactly what that is. It may be a specific plant. It may be psilocybin. It may be the Amanita muscaria, which is highly psychedelic. It could be Peganum harmala, which is Syrian rue, which has psychoactive properties. It could be ephedra, mao-huang. It could be a mixture of plants. There's not any text specifically telling us what it is. It could just be a botanical concept, or it could just be our inner pharmacy, because within the pineal gland is this spirit molecule, the God molecule, DMT, dimethyltryptamine, and it's said that through years of practice, of mantra, of yoga, of meditation, of pranayama, of purifying our nervous system, Shakti, Kundalini at the base of the spine, wakes up and goes and touches the pineal gland, Shiva, and this nectar of immortality, this Soma Amrita, comes out, and that's DMT, the spirit molecule. That's within us. We don't need it from an external source if we do the practices. So this concept, there was this Vedic soma plant that was considered to be used in ritual. But again, its identity is uncertain, and maybe we were the plant. Maybe we were the fungi that did it. It could have just been metaphorical. We're not 100% sure. But regardless, there is an internal nectar within everyone. And I want to talk about soma a little bit because it's a beautiful concept. Because soma is like the counterpart to Agni, fire. Where Agni transforms, soma is nourishing to us. And where Agni is sharpening our perception, soma softens it. And then if Agni is really high and burning, soma is cooling that. So soma is the nectar that cools the mind and the body. It's love that softens our heart. And ultimately, it's the bliss that awakens consciousness. And that which is the essence that sustains all of life. So soma is nourishment, rejuvenation. It's our emotional safety. It's our creativity. And it's that spiritual sweetness all in one. So together, Agni and soma are their sustaining life. And when soma is really present within us, it nourishes the manas, the mind, and the buddhi, the intellect. And what happens when mind and intellect are nourished? We have mental peace. We have contentment. Our hearts are filled with empathy and compassion, and we're filled with creativity and inspiration and intuition, and we have the capacity to sit in meditation in real stillness, not just as a technique, and we're emotionally balanced. And so when we have this flow of soma through us, there's no fear, there's no anxiety, there's no stress. But when we don't have soma, the mind is dry, it's brittle, it becomes full of anxiousness and overwhelm and overthinking, and that can lead to insomnia and burnout and intense emotional reactions, and our heart loses its softness. So this is why in Tantra, in Yoga, and Ayurveda, soma is directly tied to Ananda, bliss consciousness, Satchidananda, pure bliss consciousness, our true nature. So our goal is to get back to our pure true nature. So however that's happening, whether that's through our own meditation practice or it's through an external source like a psilocybin mushroom with that divine guidance and intention that so many traditions throughout history have used, there is the ultimate foundation that we want to merge back into ourself. I just want to reemphasize that if these mushrooms are not used with utmost respect in the correct way, they can greatly disrupt your nervous system, and they can create great disruption in your life. Any psychedelic can. But there's a lot of evidence through thousands of years and in modern research showing that there is benefit for it. So if you're called to work with it, and again, I'm not encouraging anyone to do or not do anything. I'm just saying, if you're called to work with it, it's crucial that you approach it with the deepest respect, guidance, grounding, and education and intelligence possible. So the gunas, the tamas and sattvic and spiritual dimension of all of these mushrooms. Traditionally in Ayurveda, they fell under the category of tamas, which again is this damp, dull, inertia thing. But here is the nuance to that, is really these mushrooms, they may create heaviness when eaten casually or not in a coherent way, but these medicinal mushrooms have proven in clinical settings over and over again and through history to regenerate us. And so on a whole nother level, this tamas is actually turning into a sattva quality because it's supporting the mental state, the nurturing deep state. There's a mantra in Ayurveda, in yoga, in the Vedas, Asato ma sat gamaya, tamaso ma jyotir gamaya, mrityur ma amritam gamaya. From untruth to truth, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. Maybe these mushrooms are this mantra. Maybe the mushrooms are from untruth to truth, darkness into light, and death to immortality. Maybe these mushrooms are basically tamasic by nature, but they're the truest alchemists there is. They're alchemizing the darkness into the light. They're taking decay and darkness and transforming them into nourishment, clarity, and new life. So they're taking darkness and giving us life. That's my take. That's my take on these medicinal mushrooms. They're going from darkness to light, and they're providing us the opportunity to move from death to immortality, from untruth to truth. And so we're turning life into alchemy itself. They mirror life. We're turning death into nourishment. We're turning shadow into healing light, and we're turning the tamas into sattva. So there's a concept in Ayurveda of these bhasmas. They take really toxic materials. They take mercury, take gold, silver, different things, and they turn them into ash by cooking them thousands of times. And what was once poison is now medicine. So I think the mushrooms are taking the poison of decay, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and rejuvenating us. And so Ayurveda, if we're going to use mushrooms, does give some guidelines on how to do it in a safe and intelligent way. If you're cooking them, cook them well. Don't eat them raw. Raw food in general is heavier to digest anyway. But cook your mushrooms, cook them, boil them, steam them for 15, 20 minutes. Saute them in ghee or coconut oil. Cook them with herbs. Cook them with spices. Cook them with ginger, with turmeric, black pepper, cumin, garlic, if it's appropriate for your system. Delicious. You can make so many epic foods with these mushrooms. They can also be used in teas, in decoctions, in tinctures, in dual extracted forms, in any way like this. So it's the proper use, right? So we want to just remove the heavy and damp qualities by adding something to it. And we can use mushrooms to match with our constitution, right? So for a vata type, mushrooms benefit from the grounding quality. Just vata should ensure that they're well cooked. Take them with some coconut oil, some ghee, combine them with warming spices, and eat them in moderation. If you're using them medicinally, consult your practitioner, consult your Ayurvedic educator. For a pitta type, pitta needs more cooling, right? So mushrooms' cooling nature is especially helpful in the hotter months. Just avoid over-oiling them and over-spicing them. Something like that. And, maybe lightly sauteed or steamed or stewed is a really good way to do them. Cook them with some vegetables. And then for a kapha, because kapha is naturally heavy. Kapha is naturally damp. And so kapha needs to be careful. Kapha needs to use plenty of spices. They need to be very well cooked and maybe a smaller portion than, say, a vata or a pitta. And, putting mushrooms with cheese and heavy cream, not the best idea for a kapha. Make them dry, make them spiced, make them light. And really, we want to use mushrooms in a way that's supporting the digestive fire because they have that ability to do that. So just be aware of your digestive capacity, be aware of what season it is, be aware of your current balances and imbalances, and then use the mushrooms intelligently. For the use of functional mushrooms, not just as food, but as medicine, really, you need to find high-quality mushrooms. And again, I only use Real Mushrooms, the company Real Mushrooms, because 50 years of experience, and they've been clinically tested that every batch has the medicine in there. So you want to do them as teas or a dual extracted powder. They do make them in capsules. And basically, if you're using them for a specific condition, research it as much as possible. Consult with an Ayurvedic practitioner or someone who's well-versed in mushrooms. Or if you are using stuff on your own, which is great and wonderful, start with a tea. Start with a small dose and see how your body feels with them. There's no specific dosing for this condition or that condition. Ayurveda doesn't treat conditions or symptoms. It treats the whole person. So you have to look at your body's needs, what climate you're in, and what your life circumstances are. But in general, you can use them as teas, as an actual medicine, but start with a small dose unless you know exactly what you're doing and see how your body functions with them. So I want to basically share with you how to begin exploring mushrooms, because I've just given a lot of information, and you're probably going to want to go back and listen to this a few times. If you're really interested in learning about the depths of mushrooms, download this episode and keep listening to it and take lots of notes because there's so much here. But if you're feeling inspired to use mushrooms, but all of this is overwhelming, here's a realistic way to begin. Start with culinary mushrooms. Go get some shiitake mushrooms. Go get some maitake mushrooms. Go get some oyster mushrooms and make some simple dishes. Boil them, steam them, cook them with some ghee or some coconut oil, add a little spices to them, and like with anything, chew well, have it with some rice, have it with some vegetables, and just notice how your body feels, very simply. It's really a simple way to do it with any food. And then maybe experiment with lion's mane or a reishi supplement, two of my favorites, right? Again, you need to choose a reputable brand that's using high quality tested mushrooms. That's real mushrooms. Okay. Start with a low dose. Say if you're making a tea, do a quarter teaspoon each, or maybe a capsule or something. You choose. There's no specific method, but start with a low dose, see how you feel. Add some hot water, make a nice tea, track your changes. Like really, if you be an explorer in the forest of the mycelium fungi kingdom. So track your changes, how you feel, your focus, your mood, your sleep, your stress response over a few weeks. I love putting my mushrooms in cacao. And another shout out to Real Mushrooms. They make a cacao blend with 5 mushrooms in it, and then I add extra lion's mane and I add extra cordyceps to it. But any cacao, you make a cacao drink, you can make a pu'er drink, you can even mix it with yerba mate or matcha or green tea. Add some mushrooms to your tea or just have it as a tea on its own. I'm not a big proponent of drinking coffee, but if you are drinking coffee, throw your mushrooms in there as well. And just notice how your energy feels. Very simple. And really just respect contraindications. I'm just giving a shout out. If you're pregnant or you're breastfeeding or maybe have some autoimmune conditions or taking a whole bunch of medications, check with a qualified practitioner, check with your physician before doing anything, really, just to be safe. And same thing, if you're if you're going through cancer treatment or have a serious illness, mushrooms may be supportive, but only under strict guidance. So you need to check with your primary care physician first and do it with a lot of intention, do it with respect, because mushrooms are a teacher. Mushrooms are truly a teacher. And I think that's what I'll close with today, because this is already getting long and you're going to have to listen to this you might want to listen to this a few times. But mushrooms are one of my greatest teachers. And we're heading out of the forest. We're ending our journey today with these teachers. These beings, these mushrooms, they have a soul. So step back a minute. Just envision this in your heart, in your mind, in your cells, in the earth. Step back from the science that we've talked about and all the Ayurveda philosophy. Step back and feel into the soul, the vibration of the mushroom. Breathe in their vibrational frequency, this mycelial network that connects everything. Because these beings live in the liminal space, the space in between. They live in the space between death and life. They live in the space between the earth, the soil, the roots, and the fruits. They live in the invisible and the visible. They truly are transforming decay into life, into nourishment. They're connecting tree to tree, plant to plant. They weave through the forest like a living web of consciousness. They literally are connecting the whole planet to the earth. Let them connect to us. Feel that network moving through our body. Really, in so many ways, mushrooms are the subtle body of the earth. They're this giant nervous system sending information, messages, distributing the resources and keeping the balance of consciousness on the planet. So for us as humans, they invite that alchemy, that same alchemy that they're offering, to take what's old, to take what's stagnant, to take what's decaying within us, the old stuck patterns, the old stuck emotions, the burnout, and turn it into resilience, turn it into wisdom, turn it into new life. Remember, always remember that Ayurveda teaches that all food is medicine when used consciously, and all medicine can become a poison when it's not used consciously. And so mushrooms are sitting in that exact paradox. They're super powerful. They're ambiguous. They're transformational. And they can be used as medicine or poison. They're asking us to respect the power that they have, to respect the earth, to respect ourselves, to slow down, to make wise choices in our life, but also in your mushroom choices. Make wise choices. Choose your species wisely. Match them to our body and our constitution. And really listen. Listen to how we feel when we take them, how your liver feels, how your heart feels, your energy, your mind. And if we do like this, the mushrooms really become powerful, beautiful allies on our path to healing and reconnecting to the living earth, and I would say even to our spiritual awakening. So I'm going to finish with a few reflective journal prompts. I'm going to leave you with a couple of questions to contemplate or journal. These are fungi questions. Ask yourself, what in my life is ready to be composted? What in my life is ready to be composted? What is ready to be turned from old dead weight into nourishment for my next chapter? So I can fruit, so I can have a fruiting body, so I can live life as a friendly fungi. Okay? What in my life am I ready to compost? Turn the old, the darkness to light, the death to immortality, the untruth to truth. What am I ready for? And just like mushrooms, take what is decaying in the forest and turn it into the fertile soil. So what might be ready to break down in you? What are you ready to have break down so you can live a more alive, authentic, aligned life, so you can grow to your fullest fruiting manifestation? Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for taking this journey today with me through the mysterious world of mushrooms and Ayurveda, where the ancient wisdom meets the modern science. So if this episode resonated with you, please like it, subscribe, share it with your friends, especially anyone who's curious about mushrooms, and go out and get real mushrooms. Go to nibodhi.com/mushrooms or check out the notes in the podcast notes and get the best quality mushrooms you can get, and go out, find mushrooms in the wilderness. Do it wisely, do it with intention. Go to the store and begin your fungi journey today. So until next week, stay grounded, stay alive, stay awake, fill your hearts with love, express it in everything you do, and have a wonderful week. Namaste.